well have been on time for all I know, but for KW, it was late. Much too late. That the only letter KW ever got from Alice happened to be her obituary was an irony lost on no one, especially KW. But on that night, as I sat transfixed by a blonde with a pixie cut, whose fingers seemed to drum on my body as they kept the beat on the belly of her guitar, I had no idea that the four of us were linked to a house on Granite Avenue. In fact, I would probably have laughed at the improbability of it all. Chapter 1. 2 years later. Trimmed in dusty white, the pale yellow craftsman house was nearly the same color as the dead grass of the front lawn. The roof was pockmarked with missing shingles, and the drain pipes were pulling away from the house on both sides. I parked my pickup across the street and pulled out my cell phone, searching for Carol's email about the listing. I found the price and dialed Carol to cancel the appointment. In the old North End, even a dump was a big stretch for my price range. The call went to voicemail without ringing. Either Carol was showing another house or she was screening the call. I hung up without leaving a message. The sun was inching toward Pikes Peak. Dusk would settle in less than an hour. I climbed out and stretched. A cold wind gusted, and I zipped my Carhartt jacket, turning the collar up to block the wind that whistled down my neck. I crossed the street and walked up the brick path toward the front porch. Under the overhang, I was shielded by two sides of the house, and the wind had less bite. I tested the porch swing. The white paint had splintered off where legs had rubbed the planks and the chain whined, but the bolts were driven deep in the wood, and the swing felt solid. The longer I sat on the swing, the colder I got, but I stubbornly waited until Carol pulled up to the curb before hopping off. Carol kept her phone sandwiched between her shoulder and ear as she climbed out of her Lexus. The car was jet black and gleaming as usual. Carol was a regular at the car wash. My Ford had been black once, months ago, but winter storms had left their muddy mark. She waved, double-clicked the lock button on her car, tested the door to make sure the lock button had in fact worked, and then headed up the brick path. When she reached the front steps, she ended her phone call and dropped her phone into her purse. "Great location, right?" "I think that might be all it has going for it." Carol tested the porch handrail and smiled when it wobbled. "You know what they say about location. Be ready to dump a lot of money into a house if it's in the right location." Carol rolled her eyes. "I just got off the phone with Michele. She told me to tell you hello." I had lots of practice by now at keeping up a front when Michele's name came up. The best way to keep anyone from noticing that her name threw me off balance was to smile and nod, then promptly change the subject. "I don't have the budget for this place, Carol. I don't think I should even waste your time going inside. I've wanted to peek in this place for a while. You're not wasting my time, and you aren't going to see another property pop up in this neighborhood that is even close to your budget. Well then, maybe the North End is out of my league." I wanted to ask Carol why she'd been on the phone with Michele. They were friends, of course, but I knew Michele and Desi, her girlfriend of the moment, were considering buying a house together. They discussed the idea in detail at a recent dinner party, even asking my opinion about buying a fixer-upper versus a newer home. The thought of them moving in together wasn't the worst thing I heard that evening, but it was close. That same night, they'd gotten into an argument, and Michele's parting words to me had been, "You'd be the perfect person to buy a house with. If Lynn lets you go, come find me." This was, in fact, worse than hearing about her plans to buy a house with anyone else. Worse because she could joke about it. She liked to try to get a rise out of Lynn, who had only shaken her head in response to the comment. No one in the room had taken it seriously, least of all me. "Think of your profit margin. You can stick to making peanuts remodeling dumps in suburbia, or sign on for a bigger loan and play the game with the big boys. Think big, Jodi. You're ready for this address." "I think I'd need a business partner with some capital to qualify." "Lynn would help, wouldn't she?" I wouldn't want to ask. There was no way in hell that I was going to ask Lynn for financial help. She might agree, but adding her name to the loan would mean I owed her, a debt I could never pay off. Carol was staring at me, so I added, "Lynn hates the idea of signing onto loans with anyone. She doesn't like shared risks." We'd carefully avoided sharing finances on her insistence. Besides that, we didn't need to add another potential issue to our already full list. I should know better than to stick my nose into someone else's relationship.